Greetings! I'm Herbert Erpaderp, and today, because it is still Jagdpanzer 38T July, I'm going to build this 48th scale Hetzer from Tamiya. Hetzer being the correct and proper name.
You're just saying that so people rage comment, aren't you, Herbert?
Maybe just a little bit. Inside the box, the most noticeable thing is the die-cast chassis in its own packaging, hot glued inside the box. Most of these 48th scale Tamiya kits include a weight in some form, and because it's the lower hull, this is the only kind you can't really avoid using. Unless for whatever reason you want a really weird looking Hetzer. Not that I'm against using it, of course. It is a good looking chunk of metal. The whole top also looks good. It is pretty much what you would expect from a Tamiya kit. All the sprues are neatly moulded, and the mould lines are very minimal. I know, I say pretty much the same thing every time I look at a Tamiya kit, and that's because they are just so consistent. It would actually be kind of shocking if you saw one with a huge piece of flash or mismoulded parts or something like that. There is, of course, the good old link and length tracks. Not the best I've seen, but certainly not even close to the worst, which is to say they're good. Polycaps. I know some of you will be very excited to see these. And of course there's a sheet of decals, and I do know they work exactly as intended. I do like that there's a little silhouette of a Hetzer on them. Makes them easy to find when you're rummaging through your drawer full of decals. And here's the instructions. They're a fold-out sheet, which can be a little bit cumbersome, though there's not a whole lot to this model, so it's not a huge set of instructions. The important part is that the instructions are clear and easy to understand and follow, and Tamiya are usually quite good at that. It has been a while since I built this, so I don't remember if there were any issues, and I suspect either there were only very minor issues, the kind you forget about 2 minutes later, or there were none. Anyway, let's get to gluing bits of plastic together. The first thing to do is, of course, to attach these lifting brackety looking doodads, which go on the lower front hull plate. The way these parts are shaped makes it easy to get this right. The instructions want that glued onto the die-cast hull, so why not? If you want this to stay together, you'll need to use superglue because plastic cement does not bond metal. Same goes for the bogey parts. Each of these is a single part, which, believe it or not, really speeds up assembly. The return roller is also a single part that will need to be superglued into place. Pretty much anything contacting the hull is going to need superglue. I glue the drive sprockets together next. These are keyed, so you shouldn't have too much, if any trouble, getting these together nicely with their teeth all aligned. You'll notice there's a pin on the inside of this. Don't cut it off, that's a guide pin. It'll help guide you. Idler wheel assembly is pretty much the same. It's keyed so the holes in the wheels line up. There's almost no play in these parts, and they roll nice and straight along the desk, and that's how you know they are good. The superglue is out again. This time, I'm gluing this little whatever it is in. This will sort of clip the whole rear into place, and thus help hold the upper hull in place. So it is probably something you want to install. The final drives go on next, and these are a single piece, which is certainly not a complaint. It makes things rather easy. I then glue the road wheels into place, which is about as simple as it looks, unless of course you think it looks difficult. There's not much play in these parts, though you should pay attention to make sure they're all lined up as straight as you can get them. The idler wheel then goes into place at the rear. You may have to kajigger it past the rear road wheel, but that's nothing too difficult. It made sense to follow that with drive sprockets. As I pointed out before, there's keying here to ensure things are lined up properly, and to make sure the sprockets mesh with the tracks, so installing said tracks is easy. Speaking of tracks, this kit comes with a kind of jig on the sprue, which, in my experience, is a bit unusual for these Tamiya 48th scale kits. It's not a bad thing, of course, though, and this might be obvious, you have to be very careful with the glue, so you don't just glue the tracks onto the sprue. That would be kind of annoying. They do work as intended though. The resulting assembly fits onto the drive sprocket very nicely. You could just place the links onto the sprocket yourself, but this also kind of works as keying for the tracks, in a way. It makes adding the rest of the links quite easy, though, in my opinion, it was always going to be pretty easy. The links around the idler wheel were attached with no jig. It's pretty simple, though I did encounter a minor issue. There's a little bit too much track to just press everything into place. I had to kajigger them a bit so they were kind of hanging down from the idler. This is likely to be user error, an ID10T error, probably. I don't know if this had anything to do with using the jig or not. It did happen on both sides. It could just be how the kit is. It's not the worst problem, and I guess if the track tension isn't super tight, that is probably how gravity would work on the links. Inside the upper hull part, I glue this thing. This is a mounting guide for joining the two halves of the hull together. It's probably a good idea to give this plenty of time to bond. While it does so, why not install these mudguardy doodads? This is pretty simple. It should be very hard to put them on the wrong side of the model, but who would do something like that? Not me. Then, the commander's binoculars go into place. This is a nice, easy single part. And of course, we've got the periscope for the main gun, which is also quite simple to install. How about some internal mechanisms? This is for the main gun. If you carefully glue the outer two parts, the middle part can be left movable, which at this point is good. You may, like me, choose to glue everything solidly into place later when you know where you want everything to be, but for now, leaving it movable is best. At this end, there's a small ring, which goes on nice and easy. That assembly can then be inserted into the gun bulge. I think that's what I decided it was called in the Tacom Hetzer video. Yes, it's me who decides the name of these things. That part won't stay in by itself, and I've not glued it yet, but I did glue the mantlet into place, which will keep the entire thing together until I'm ready to install it. I follow this by gluing the tip onto the main gun. Just the tip. There is a tiny bit of play to this, but it's not too hard to get it all lined up nice and neat. Why not then insert that into the gun mantlet, where it belongs? While I leave that to bond, I install the engine deck. Unsurprisingly, this is a very good fit, so it's easy to get into place, which I guess is kind of redundant to say. Anyway, the antenna mount goes here on the right, and then the forward part of the commander's hatch, which, because we've got binoculars, is open. A little bit of nudging was needed here. Alright, sickos, it's time for polycaps. I don't know why I'm putting 2 polycaps in here. The instructions don't even actually tell you to put 1 polycap in there, though the picture does kind of imply that there's already at least 1 in there. At any rate, the hull won't fit properly with 2 polycaps in there anyway, so 1 it is. Obviously, polycaps alone just won't do, so the hull gets glued into place. It did need a little bit of gap minimizing pressure, but it's not too hard to get this to look good without unwanted gaps. Next, I add these brackets to the hull rear. It's pretty simple to get these lined up nice and straight. I then attach the hull rear. I think you're actually supposed to glue this on before attaching the upper hull, and use that little tab on the inside and press it all into place. I don't know how well doing it that way works, but doing it the way I did worked pretty good. Time to assemble the exhaust system. There's a pipe part that gets sandwiched between the 2 halves of the muffler. Don't forget this.
Who would forget that?
Certainly not me. While that bonds, I build the jack. The end part goes on, and then the handle. I do think my handle might be slightly in the wrong position, but who would even notice that?
Actually, Herbert?
The brackets at the rear come next. They're a little bit fiddly to get into place, but only a little bit. Then, I add spare track links for the whole rear. These more or less plop right into place, which is pretty much what you want. And what better time to glue the gun and gun bulge into place. At this point I glue the elevation portion of the inner doodad into position, and I make sure to be quick so I can still move the gun to get it where I want it. I did forget to glue the horizontal motion into place, so that does move a bit. That's fine though, you can wiggle it back and forth. What fun! The cover for the driver's vision devices comes next, and there really isn't much to this. Nor is there too much involved in getting the convoy light into place. You've just got to get that top bit onto the pole, I guess you might call it. The brush guard for the gun sight is very slightly more fiddly. Not actually that fiddly, and there are guides for it, though you will probably need to do a bit of nudging. Would you look at the clock? It's time for hatches. The rear half of the commander's hatch goes here. I'm modelling mine closed, just so that you can't see in there. The loader's hatch is a single part, so if you want to model this open, you will have to do some cutting. There's a stowage box at the left rear. Obviously having the guards on the correct side makes this very easy. Assembling the rooftop machine gun is a sensible next step. First, the magazine goes into place on the left. I follow that with the shields. There are little guides on these parts that make this very easy, though, of course, you will probably still have to do a bit of nudging. Nothing wrong with a bit of nudging though. I set that aside to bond, and install this block on the front right guard. On the middle of the engine deck, there's a set of spare track links, and the guide pins and corresponding holes make this very easy to position. Next to that, why not a brush guard over the rear-facing vision device? On the right rear here, there's a nice long bar for jimmying stuff, probably mostly for opening crates full of loot. And then on the rear, a set of towing cables, probably for towing away loot. I do like that this was a single part and not some annoying metal cables. The jack goes here on the right rear, nothing much to getting this into place. And then the exhaust assembly. I guess there could be a joke about this being exhausting, the joke being that this is not at all exhausting. It's very simple and only took seconds.
Ah yes, very funny, Herbert.
I then attached the rooftop machine gun, and there's nothing to it, but I did notice at this time, months and months later, that I'd forgotten the brush guard over the vision device here. Too bad I've already started and nearly finished painting it. I guess the factory forgot this one. Yeah, that's not a good story, is it? Maybe no good punks came and sawed it off. Yeah, that's probably more convincing. The gun does look pretty decent at least. The final step is to get the skirts into place, and having the mounting brackets and skirt plates as a single part makes this quite easy. There's almost nothing to it, and that's it. The Hetzer, or if you prefer, Jagdpanzer 38T in 48th scale from Tamiya, is now completed. Sans one brush guard, I guess. One problem, I forgot to make an end clip on the spinny thing for this model. That normally wouldn't be a problem, I would just film one. But I primed the model before I realised, and because it's primed in black, you really wouldn't have seen much of anything. That's partly why this video is only being made now. It's been well over a year since I built this. I have been painting the Hetzer though, so I guess I'll put work in progress pictures here, and the next video will probably be the painting video. It's only fitting for Jagdpanzer 38T July to paint a Hetzer. Anyway, the model is quite nice and I'm happy with the result. It's pretty much what you would expect of a Tamiya kit. The only unusual thing was the jig for the tracks, which is a nice inclusion. Everything went together nicely with minimal kajiggering and barely any cleanup, so it's a fun little project that I would say is suitable for just about anybody. Except maybe people who don't like Hetzers, if such a person exists. I doubt it. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to put them in the comment section below. If you want to watch me build kits like this one live, I stream modelling a couple of times a week over on Twitch. There's a link in the description. Subscribe if you want to see more of this kind of thing, share the video with anybody you think might find it helpful, and if you really like what I do, and you want to see videos a bit early, consider supporting on Patreon or Ko-fi if you're able. Links for those are in the description too. Take care of yourselves, be excellent to each other, and thanks for watching. Farewell.